Hey guys, Jim here. I promised you I'd get some stuff to you this week uh, on this dig down deeper kind of video. And so that's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about the three metaphors that Jesus uses at the beginning between verses 19 and 24. And hopefully you will find it helpful. Okay, so if you want to follow me along, go along to Matthew 6, and we can have a little look-see at it. Now, the main one that I want to really focus on is the central one. The first and the third one serve it. So let me just read the scriptures to you before we start to unpack it. Do not lay up for yourselves treasures on earth where moss and rust destroy and where thieves break in and steal, but lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust destroys, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. And I said Sunday that what Jesus is saying there is, where your focus is, that's where your investment goes. That's where you pour out your life's energy. It's an unavoidable reality. It's a truth he's stating there in verse 21. For where your treasure is, your heart's going to be there. And so it's important to ask the question, where are we building up treasures? And wherever we're building up treasures, that's where our heart is. That's the meaning of what Jesus is talking about. And we shouldn't be embarrassed about the fact that we are laying up treasures for ourselves in heaven, because actually the scriptures tell us over and over again to do so. Paul says in his letters on more than one occasion that reward is part of his motivation, and that we will be rewarded in heaven for what we do on earth. So there is something to be said for having a perspective that is mindful of eternal rewards versus temporary earthly rewards. That's the first meaning. Let me jump to the third one before I come back to the second one. He says this, no one can serve two masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or he will be devoted to the one and despise the other. Now, Jesus uses very different words here, so this isn't a parallelism that he's saying. Basically, he's talking about, he completes the sentence with, and despise the other. You cannot serve as a slave God and money. That word there, serve, is the same word used to be a slave. So, no one can serve two masters, God and money. It's going to be one or the other. And the relationship between the two is different. Now, I know some Bible teachers don't differentiate what I'm going to differentiate, but I think there's something to it, because Jesus doesn't just say the same words for both instances. He's using a different formula for each. So the first one that he's talking about is for either he will hate the one and love the other. His preference, the one he chooses, he will have a preference that takes the form of love, and an aversion that takes the form of hate. It's interesting, isn't it? Or, this is the second one, he will be devoted to the one, cling to it, is the original language there, and despise the other. What this means is to look down on something, have a negative, hostile outlook on it, thinking down on it, thinking little of that thing. And what I think Jesus is saying is this: you're either going to cling to money and look down on people who value faith, or you're going to love God, and your relationship towards money will be one of indifference and even hatred. It's just not going to be the thing. I find that really interesting, that you don't love money. You're devoted to it. You cling to it. That even when it is the one that you're a slave to, it still looks like a different kind of slavery. It's not a love relationship. Why? Because it doesn't meet your needs. It doesn't fulfill the needs. And this is what Jesus is saying. You'll love the one and hate the other. That's just kind of like black and white. The life of materialism is just not going to be the priority if your priorities are your master's priorities, i.e. God. But if money is your God, if money is your master, you're going to look down on faith. But even then, you won't love money. You'll be devoted to it. You'll cling to it. But it won't give you satisfaction. It's fascinating, isn't it? Okay? So these two, treasures on earth, treasures in heaven, two masters, money or God, serve to facilitate the central metaphor, which is this: the eye is the lamp of the body. So if your eye is healthy, and that word there is single, your whole body will be full of light. Now, let me just read the rest of that. Verse 23, if your eye is bad, your whole body will be full of darkness. If then the light in you is darkness, how great is that darkness? Now, one commentator says this, referring to the eye, the Greek word here for healthy or single is the Greek word haplous, and it refers to singleness primarily. It describes an eye which does not see double, as it does when it is infected or unhealthy. So when an eye is unhealthy or infected, you have double vision. When the eye accomplishes its purpose of seeing things as they are, then it is healthy, single. In this verse, the eye is called single in a moral sense. And so the eye that is clear represents a heart that has a single-minded devotion. So what Jesus is talking about here is, again, treasure on earth, treasure in heaven. Serve God, serve money. Single eye or double eye. Now, what's really interesting is this. The one use in the Old Testament, after it was translated into Greek, it was known as the Septuagint, use of this word haplos, uses it to describe generosity. And it's from Proverbs 11:25. It says this: the generous man or woman will be prosperous, and he who waters will himself be watered. So generosity goes hand in hand with single devotion and a healthy understanding of commitment to Jesus. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting? See, that's the point Jesus is making, is that when you're all in, when your treasure is in heaven, when you're building up treasure in heaven and your reward is focused on that, when your master is God, and when your eye is single and you have a single-minded devotion, you're going to have a different economics that you live by, one defined by the word generosity. It comes hand in hand with a single-minded devotion to God. And that's how, that's helped by the rest of the passage where he says, do not be anxious about your life. Because you're single and you're focused on God, your eye is single, and you're not anxious, you're able to be generous. But it's when your vision is blurred and you're double-minded and you're still trying to lay up treasure on earth and you're still trying to serve the master of money, that's when you get stuck. So I hope that's a little helpful to have a little bit more of the background on those three metaphors that Jesus gave us. We hope to do these from time to time, these dig down deeper little ones, to help you just understand that there's riches in the scriptures that many of us aren't even aware of. So there you go, guys. Hope you have a good one. Take care.